The last traffic report released by police indicated that on a daily basis, 4 people in Uganda perish in Boda Bodas accidents. This was partly seen in a police CCTV video released by police a few days ago. To reduce the number of accidents involving these riders, police have once again launched an operation targeting motorcycles, especially the Boda Bodas riders without road equipment. A number of motorcycles were impounded today, including those belonging to organizations. According to Kampala Metropolitan Traffic Police Commander Rogers Nsereko, this will help reduce road carnage.
So we are trying to reduce on the number of Boda Bodas crashes, not only in the city, in the whole of Uganda, because if you checked our statistics, most people involved in these accidents are pedestrians. Then the next category is Boda Bodas riders. You get it? So this is the category that we are trying to put our main effort on to ensure that they reduce on these road crashes.
Nsereko further explained the purpose of the operation.
The beginning of Boda Bodas operations today, 7th November 2022, on helmet use and reflector jacket use, wearing. You all know that we are getting so many accidents and we are losing so many people in road crashes, mostly involving Boda Bodas riders, where we lose the Boda Bodas rider and we also lose the passengers they are carrying. So it is imperative now that we ensure that we begin to use safety measures like the use of the helmet, because the helmet will protect you, will protect your head of severe injuries.
Because of this operation, many of the Boda Bodas riders have somehow responded to the police call of wearing reflective jackets, helmets, while others have chosen to oppose the move. This operation in Kampala Metropolitan comes a few months after KCCA concluded with the registration of Boda Bodas riders, but to this date, the exact number of motorcycles in the city are not yet known by KCCA. Safi Mwakili Belego and Chris Semalemu Semakula, SEETV PM Edition.
Well, 2 minutes past the hour, the top of the hour of 8. Welcome to this edition of the Twitter Jabs. We really thank you so much for still being tuned in. Well, that was just the trigger of the discussion this very morning on the crackdown of Boda Bodas, in a bit of the Boda Bodas sector, in a bit to try and streamline the sector in this nation. My name is Eston Munanura, and to discuss this pertinent topic, I'm having the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Safe Boda. For most of you that use the Boda Bodas, Safe Boda, he does not, he always rings a bell, and he is in the studio with me to discuss this particular issue. Mr. Ricky Thompson, what is rightly wrong with the sector?
Good morning, Uganda. My name is Ricky Rapper Thompson. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about the current operation, the crackdown on Boda Bodas that is going on. I am sure if police was here as a motorcycle taxi rider, I wouldn't be arrested, but maybe you would get in trouble for not wearing your reflector.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm here, and what we have seen right now is that police is enforcing or encouraging motorcycle taxi riders to make sure they protect themselves against other road users. A motorcycle does not have a body, so it's fundamentally important that you provide some high level of visibility by wearing a reflector, and you also protect yourself because the rate of survival while wearing a helmet is much more higher. Where you'll be aware that for us as Safe Boda, for the last 8 years, we've really been on the forefront of promoting helmet wearing with clear identity, where I have my reflector properly branded with my name on it, and wear my helmets as well that are properly branded. That also encourages and makes me more visible on the road, but not only that, helps protect me in terms of a crash. What is fundamentally wrong? I think for the last couple of years, there's really been a lot of discussion on Boda Bodas. And I think what we have seen is that to a greater extent, some of the discussions were offline. of the interests of the industry, and somehow not properly coordinated, and the people in the industry not properly involved. We usually tell government that if you're making any regulation and any law, make it for the people, involve the people in the process, so that even in the implementation it becomes easier, and becomes easier for you to even attain the success that you actually need. So for this operation, I think it's fundamentally right, and I think police is doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and some of the bordermen has not been doing what is right by not making themselves visible while on the road. That will not directly have a quick time result, but I think over time it will have its own result. A lot of accidents happen in the evening hours, in the wee hours, where the guy in the car or the guy or another person riding a motorcycle cannot clearly see the other motorcycle that is actually coming. And please be aware that sometimes some of these bike riders are also very fast, right? You find a guy at the speed of 60, 70 in Kampala Metropolitan, that is extremely fast. You'd be like flying. On a highway that is slow, but within Kampala where there are a lot of people moving their cars, there are Boda Bodas, there are cows, there are goats moving, dogs crossing the road, it becomes really, really fast. So I think this is a good move by police, and they have our full support as people of the industry. We've engaged police. I've had this discussion with them before, and I told them, like, look, this is something that is important, and I think for this particular operation, they have the full support of the industry, and I think this is why they are likely to succeed and transform the industry into an industry that then appreciates reflector wearing and helmet wearing. Of course, we'll need to talk about the question, the quality going forward, but for now, the starting point is okay.
Yes, yeah, I would like to maybe hear from you. Do you think that Boda Boda riders are being used as scapegoats? Because also those
what does that word mean?
Scapegoats. I mean, like they are being used to cover up, or as a cover up for other other road users. Yeah, they all carry the blame. Yet other road users also contribute immensely to road accidents. For instance, the motorists, the truck drivers, and the whole blame, 80%, like the biggest percentage is being used, being put on your sector where you are working.
I think to be fair, the problem on the road is not only for Boda, right? But also, to be fair, statistically, when you look at the result and the report about road crashes and annual road crash report, it looks like Boda has been maintaining some level of contribution, right? On average, around 35–40% every year. Which then, of course, after the Bodas, you go to like the pedestrians and then these other taxis and then normal car drivers. And there's always been a lot of discussion. Where do we actually start from, right? And I think it's not a bad play to at least start from somewhere. I understand that maybe it can be easier, because the clip that was just played clearly showed that Inseriko is saying Boda Bodas, and after Boda Bodas, the next group are the pedestrians, right? And the pedestrians are quite difficult to find unless you're going to just keep stopping people who are walking on the road. There's a real problem also with like the general behavior of people, right? As I was riding here, actually a pedestrian knocked me.
A pedestrian knocked you?
Yes.
You didn't knock?
I didn't knock. It was here by the villa, the former Cayenne. A guy is an askari, so he was crossing the road, right? So he literally was crossing the road, and he was just crossing while looking back, right? So he had him knocking me by the shoulder. So I think I should have also reported to police, because a pedestrian literally knocked me while I was on my border riding. So you have some sort of people who are walking on the street, they're unhappy, they're less conscious about what is happening. They assume that things are going to be okay, right? And I think that is also a very big problem, that you have a lot of people who are using the road, people who are not mentally prepared or psychologically prepared to be walking actually on the road, are walking on the road. And sometimes these are the people that end up becoming victims, or they end up contributing to the numbers, right? Unfortunately, these numbers are real human beings. And I think at a certain point, you don't want to blame everybody, but at least start from somewhere to be able to get the public on the right direction. Sensitization and rule usage, I think what I still remember very well was what I was taught in primary, right? Which means that our education system need to empower things like road safety very, very heavily. Work environment need to empower road safety like very, very heavily. I bet that you could find people who came to CTV, they're reporting about issues, they've been seeing the numbers of deaths that have been happening, like real people who are highly educated and they have degrees and masters, and they've been seeing the numbers that have actually been happening, and somehow they still get on a border from point A to point B without a helmet. It's shocking. It's shocking because somehow there are people who believe that those are unlucky people. So they are.
It was their time.
It was their time, right? You hear someone telling, God, Smani, there's always those statements that people make, right? And some of them you really don't want to associate with it. So I think there's a real issue about the public. I think after this operation, which I don't think it should actually stop, it should become like a lifeblood of Uganda police. Any person who is riding about a motorcycle anywhere in the world, not in Uganda, anywhere in the world, like there are things that we shouldn't even be discussing. If you're riding a motorcycle anywhere in the world, you have to be visible, right? If you're riding a motorcycle anywhere in the world, you have to have a helmet, a crash helmet, because you need a reflector to be seen, you need a helmet to be visible. We actually don't have a global recommendation. We don't have a global standard for pedestrians, apart from like following your lane, right? But somehow you find that even the road design, somehow, you have to cross from where there are actually no zebra crossings to a certain extent, right? And some of these incidents is continue to happen. So I think really I don't want to blame police for having taken interest in empowering the borderman to be safe and by wearing their reflectors and helmet. But I just want to encourage my fellow riders to make sure they have their reflectors. Because this is something that, and even if someone wants to blame the police, an average reflector cost in town is 5,000 shillings.
So,
like you get what I'm saying?
yes, I get it.
It's 5,000 shillings. You could get better quality one for like 15, 20, or like for like thousands of dollars if you want. But an average cost of a reflector is 5,000. Maximum could be 7,000.
But Ricky, let me ask you this. Basically, even when you're doing driving lessons, at least I've taken some. And
You
the
did
first
the driving lesson?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So, and my first lesson was in road science before I got into the car.
Okay.
You see, they took me through the whole nitty-gritty and the basic academic bit of the car and the road and the relationship between you, the driver, because they call it defensive driving. That at least as you're driving, you must be very cognizant of. You're not alone, but you must be protective of those that are around you as you're behind the wheel. And actually, the course took 2 weeks in learning all those and what they do and where they are stationed in most, leave alone these driving schools that are on the roadside, where the car is the office, the car is, I'm talking about, and they really take you through, and that is 2 weeks before you get behind the wheel. Do we see this also in the riding? Is there any of such, a modicum of operation in terms of teaching our riders, or anyone gets a bike and off we go?
I think you're one of the few Ugandans, if not among the 1%. I meet very senior people and they tell me, man, I got my permit and I've never been to a driving school. It looks like you're shocked, but let's ask the public to tell us on social media and on Twitter how many of them have been to a driving school to actually learn 2 weeks before they get on the wheels, right? Because most of the driving schools in Uganda are really good, but I think to a certain extent they also do a good job. but I think lots of the people who have been able to acquire their permits all over Uganda, very few of them have had the time to sit in class for 2 weeks. I think it could be like maybe 1% or less than 1%. The reason I say this, and I say this with a lot of authority, is because even when you go to URA, I remember in 2009, when I got my permit, it was as easy as, you know, when you walk in the old URA, right? There was that green area where they were parking. So there was a parking area and there were the green areas. So you'd find guys there with files, right? With popular envelopes and stuff like that. They'll be like, "Are you looking for a driving? Are you looking for a permit?" Right? And you'd be like, "Yes." "Oh, okay, I can help you." So they help you with the application process because you need to get a learner's permit. They blah blah blah. They help you pay. I think that was 27,000 shillings at the time. Then after that, they say, "Okay, now you need to get learner's permit because now you're paid for application to start the process." And then what do I need? I need a high check. And then they had a doctor's stamp already that is only waiting for your name. Wow. And I think this thing is still actually happening. They have already doctor's stamp that is just waiting. And I don't know even these clinics actually exist. So you already have doctor's stamp and 10, 20,000 shillings. You already visited a doctor right from within. This is within the government premise. And then the next thing is like, you need a certificate from a driving school. They already have it for you. You've already done your, right? And probably in the next 2, 3, 4 days, you can actually go to Naguru for testing. And that's also another story. I don't want to get in that.
Of which also many people do not go there.
And I don't want to get in that story.
Yeah.
Now, if you are one of those few, then it's one of the very fewest group. So issues of driving school standard, it's still a big gap, right? There's people own driving schools for different reasons, but one of the reasons that make people open businesses is to be able to make money, right? If the system does not allow you to practice what you're supposed to practice, you practice what can help you go forward and help you bring revenue, right? You get to realize that a lot of driving schools are by the roadside. Actually, what you actually don't know is that those cars that are on the roadside are being owned by individual drivers, the owners of those cars, who are actually instructors that are attached to a real driving school. Interestingly, they're attached to a real driving school who are been licensed by the Ministry of Works and Transport, but then they are on the road because they need to find customers, right? So they are always in those busy areas where they can find customers, and you know, they find you and you're already on the road and you're already learning, and then you. So anyway, if there is any coverage that you can do of a driving school with like more than or double the size of a pitch, right? Because you get to realize that there are driving schools here that have got like 10 branches, right? Right? Show us their pitch, right? Shows where they do the training from. Like these guys do the training on the roadside, on the road, right? Directly on the road, which I don't know. I did driving lessons, and I actually went to South Africa and did driver simulation in Cape Town. It was in Durban. It was a whole different experience, right? Because there was that requirement that you need to attain certain numbers of kilometers for you to actually get a permit. But before you attain that, because there's no way you can attain thousands of kilometers while on the road, so they help you. So you do like in-house driving, which is called driver simulation, where you get to experience like the real road while inside the building. So do we have anywhere in Uganda where a border man can go sit in class and be trained like this? Apart from Safe Border Academy in Chirando, there's none, right? There's none, absolutely there's none. And also one of the issues that I have been raising, and many other people have also been raising, is the distance and the disconnect between the curriculum that are actually being taught versus what is actually needed for a border man. Right? We've actually had to do like a full research with the team from Global Road Safety Partnership, Macquarie University, to develop a whole new curriculum for a border rider. Right? And this is some of the gaps that for us we are trying to pay attention to and we are trying to fix. And it's a good thing for the country. But there's no any other school that I know of that you can go to and become a border rider. And what usually happens is once you have a border, you give it to your friend, he jumps on it, he's on the road. As long as it is moving, it's good to go. Like a lot of us learned how to ride on the road, and thousands of other Ugandans, including even those on the 4-wheel, right? Learned by the road in the parking. Like for me, I learned how to drive a car while I was an askari at Akamwesi by the parking area, right? And before I get to go to the road, I really knew how to drive. Like in 2009, you could get a permit without appearing anywhere. Like you just go to First Technology, right? The entire process was being done for people. So these are issues that I think government has been trying to work on, and I think where we are today, a type of permit process and permit acquisition, it's okay. It's not as it was like maybe 10 years ago, right? There's a bit of improvement. But where we are right now, especially with the border training and border empowerment, I think we are still way behind where you can just get a border and start riding on the street. One of the things that you should notice even in the statement of Insereco is that they are not looking for driving permits, right? Because statistically, when you actually look at, Bakare did a little bit of a behavioral study that was actually clearly stating that people with driving permits actually have got higher chances of being involved in accidents
than those.
Yeah, especially the border men. You know why? You know, I am the only one with a driving permit. The rest of you don't have a driving permit. So I feel entitled to the road. Mindset. Like because now you think because you're legal.
You're
right?
some bit of you're in an elite structure.
Yeah. So because now you're legal, because even when you look at people who are abusing the road, they are not a layman, they are not a normal Ugandan. These are senior citizens. These are powerful people. These are influential people. Look at everyone who is driving on one way. Everyone. It's not you. It's not me. I can't drive on a one way. I'm a nobody. I can't drive on a one way. You look at the cars. It's you, what they like they're the ones driving on the wrong side of the road, right? What, like those guys are powerful people in the country. They're the ones breaking the law. They're the ones driving on the wrong way and all this. So you also get to realize that behavior has cropped in the border community, where you actually realize that that people, border men who actually have driving permits are saying, so who do you think you are? You know, you even find a guy on a motorcycle abusing another guy in a car. I don't know if you have watched those kind of scenarios where a guy is actually insulting a guy in a Land Cruiser. Remember, a Land Cruiser has got the body, the bumper, and all these things, right? And you are on a motorcycle, literally a frame without a body, and you're insulting the guy and you're in front of him. You know, you're insulting him and going in front of him. I don't understand what kind of community is, what kind of people are these? Like you can't insult. Like,
Bariki, I think to hold your thought there, could this be not an institutional problem that maybe is being caricatured by the border sector? Could it be more of a moral turpitude that is among you people that are in the border sector? That lack of decorum while at your work, Ricky.
No.
Yes.
No. I actually think that there's a real general problem in our society. I sometimes feel bad, especially even when I see those who are crossing the road on foot. Even when, you know, even when the light is actually red and you're on the pedestrian lane and you want to cross the road but still feel entitled to the road, right? And you have seen people who are trying to cross the road and they're like, it's just like, I don't know what to do. Like a guy is trying to cross the road but
goes behind, he's undecided.
It's undecided, right? It looks like this person is not ready to cross the road. So it's more of a societal issue that we have. Right? You find someone crossing the road and telling you this. I don't know if you have seen that. Like a guy is crossing the road, is like, you wait, right? And remember, this is a machine, right? And you've seen a border having a disagreement with a guy in a taxi and is like, Buka. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Buka, right? So I think there is need for general sensitization of the public, general awareness, and we also need to take responsibility where need be. Of course, as people in the border industry, we take full responsibility of some of our misbehaviors and our faults. As Safe Border, of course, we have stood out to be leaders in the industry and acted well and wanted to promote right things and do what is right. And we think that the rest of the community can actually learn from that. But I really think that this problem is not only for Boda Bodas, it's for you and me, and it's for everybody.
Yes, let's talk about police releasing that CCTV footage. Some people are trying to feel like police is trying to scare them off borders as opposed to encouraging them to stay safe. I mean, the gruesome pictures of those accidents. What is it?
I actually think, you remember the campaign on polio. You remember the campaign on HIV, right?
Yes.
What did we do? What did the country do when it came to HIV? Sometimes we really want to be diplomatic about issues, but we need to be real, man. Like, I struggle with people who are smart, who have bright futures for making bad decisions, even when they move, right? One of the things I do is, if I have a car and you sit in my car, if you don't want to sit on a seatbelt, if you don't want to put on a seatbelt while in my car, just out, man. We don't have to discuss that. If you want to go on my bike, especially if I'm not doing like the safe border work, and you just want a lift, we need to have a helmet. If there's no helmet, I'm not going to take you. As simple as that. Get a safe border. We will come to you with a second helmet and wear. We've been promoting helmet wearing for the last 8 years. And I can assure you that the numbers had grown. We had received, I think, around 35% of our customers were wearing helmets, which was a good number, right? The reality is, when you look at statistics of what's happening in the country, we're losing close to 10 people every day on road crashes. And the larger population is the border. It's people who are riding on borders. Recently, you had a daughter of a minister died in a border. Like, every other day, you find people, young people, like everyone. Like,
No, just go to hospitals. All those that are maimed with the legs.
Malawi is spending over 50% of its budget on treating people with border-related, people who comes from border-related accidents. So I kind of feel like, yes, I understand it's a bit scary, but let's do what is also right? Make sure you ride with the right person. Don't ride with any border. Because some people come to you when they're even smelly, you can easily tell that the guy is under the influence of something. I don't know if it's something.
I'll give you a story. This was quite funny. I think back in the days, I think I was in my first year, School of Journalism. And I sit on a border. We are moving at past the Ginger Road lights. So this person, I can clearly tell he's not himself and he's drunk, but I don't know on what. So we are stopped by a traffic police officer. And by then, that is when they had, brought in the breathalyzers. So this guy appeared totally drunk. And now when they put the breathalyzer, it counted 0. Like, it was not like showing that he's under influence of alcohol. So now when we get past the traffic officer, I ask this person, really, how come? Like, and he says in the Luganda written, he's like, you think I was drunk on alcohol? No, I was drunk on narcotics, njaga.
Okay.
like that. I mean, I would say it in. He was high on something else that the breathalyzer couldn't detect. So.
But then the officers could see.
Yeah, the officers could see, but then I think they just didn't have any sort of evidence to back that this human being is drunk or high on something.
Yeah.
So they just put the breath, it couldn't count, and they just told us to move on. Personally, I was scared, but I took the initiative to ask him, I can see you're totally not yourself.
Yeah.
Because he was really talking uncoordinated stuff. But I had no option because it was late in the night and I had to really get to where I had to go. And I was like, I'm not high on alcohol, but I'm high on
something else. Something.
In fact, he called it in Luganda, something waka-cola, something like that. So I think those things they chew. Exactly.
Okay.
So now this speaks volumes on, by the way, the highest crime-related are also sourced among this same crop of people. What, doesn't this scare you? Doesn't this bother you? And a safe border, that has come out to at least put some sort of light at the end of a long dark tunnel in the sector. Doesn't this bother you? And when you're training these young men and women, what do you exactly tell them in terms of, using those extra things to be sort of efficient on the job?
Okay. So first thing is I want you to note this very clearly, that I was a motorcycle taxi rider, Naliwa Boda, and I rode it full time for 5 years. I was on the street as a boarder for 5 years. I did it during the day, I did it during the night. Like on weekends, like a Friday, obawa kasawa mukaga, no kumosa kumine mukumina bilezo kumacha. Like I did that. And some of these issues that we are seeing are something that has cropped in someone for a longer time, right? And usually it's difficult to just take it out immediately, especially if these people cannot directly see value in why they should do that, right? And what we usually do in our training, of course, we have categories of training. So one is what we call road safety training, right? And this one we focus on behaviors. But we also be very, very realistic and tell you exactly and show you what is actually happening on the street. Because as a person, I lost someone to a border accident, right? And also anyone who has been in the border for at least 6 months have seen death happening on the road, or has kind of lost someone that they could easily identify with. So it's very clear. So road safety training is number one. Number two is what we call customer service training, because we work them in as entrepreneurs. We don't work them in as people who are doing casual jobs. We want to prepare them to become entrepreneurs. This is a very entrepreneurial country, and we really want to encourage them. Like you take your job, you take this as a business, not just like a job. Like I'm just doing the job for somebody, right? This is my business. This is my career. So then you prepare them for that career path. Two, after the customer service training, because customer service prepare them now to offer the best to the people. But then when you're offering the best, you need to grow. So there are issues of entrepreneurship and financial literacy that then crops in immediately, because that special training is basically to allow someone to spend lesser time in the border industry and be able to get out of the border industry happily. Because when you ask over 50% of those who are actually in the border industry, these are people who are running away from poverty. They are fighting all odds to make sure they actually make it in life, right? You find people who have sold their pieces of land to come to the border industry. Sure. You find people who left formal employment, got a loan, and they jump in the border industry. You have people who had relatives who were able to get them a motorcycle, and then they come in the industry. You have people who are struggling with all sorts of challenges. So these are people who are fighting to get out of the poverty cycle. By the way, and this is something I want to make it clear, that for me, as Ricky, the time I joined border riding, I got what I call economic liberation. And this is what I mean, that as an askari at the time, my salary at the time when I bought a motorcycle, it was 120,000 shillings. When I bought a motorcycle and joined border riding, 120,000 became a weekly saving. Not weekly earning, but weekly saving for me, right? And this meant so much to me, my family. I became the first person in my entire network of the family, from the lineage of the grandfather, to actually acquire a machine, something that had the engine. So even with my old motorcycle at the time, it called for a big celebration in my area. So I really think that this is what a border means to other people like me, right? So after that, financial literacy and all that, we then introduce them to technology. You have what we call tech wizard training. When I was in secondary school, they told me people who knew how to use computers very well were called tech wizards. They were wizards, right? They were called computer wizards.
Computer wizards.
Yeah. So I cropped it based on that. And then we have what we call tech wizard training, which is an induction to technology. Most of these people, we have to give them smartphone. We have to train them how to use a smartphone, from things like powering in, putting in your SIM card, setting it up and stuff like that, because we are dealing with the industry that has not been having smartphones. If you go to deal with farmers today, I can tell you, you have to go through the same situation, that you have to give them a smartphone and they're like, because they've never seen it, they've never interacted with it. You have to train them. And also you need to do them to the system that you build so that they're able to interact with it. After all those trainings, then you're able to introduce a very powerful young man to the street. But also of those trainings, even after we have trained them, you still have some sort of stubborn boys who then needs to be followed up even after the training, so that you are able to get the best that you need from them. So that's why we have a quality assurance team, the division leaders, the community leaders, and all that. We do it because we need to monitor. And the only way we've been able to achieve this kind of success is because we have a powerful team that are able to follow up. And all this team, when you look at our operation team, all of them are ex-border men. Like, you cannot bring people who have not been in the industry to deal with these guys. You need people who have been in you recruit from within them the best of the best and make them leaders, and then they help you with implementing some of the strategies. So these are like part of the training that we offer to our riders.
Ricky, there is this corridor talk being peddled by certain sections of the public that this crackdown on Boda Bodas seems to be more of a long-term projection, that at one moment in time we will have Kampala clean of all Boda riders. Do you subscribe to that view? I
don't subscribe to that notion. I don't, and I think it's a very dangerous game for anyone to say we want to remove Boda Bodas from the city tomorrow, right? Because, and I think this is where we have to be Ugandans, we have to be Africans, and we have to be proud of who we are. The reason Boda made it to the dictionary because they found it important and they found it part of our culture, right? And I really think that underestimating the power of just the Boda word making it to a dictionary is sad. When you look at Kampala, there are like 3, 4, 5 things that you cannot do without, right? And this is part of our history of how the city was built. Like someone is going to jump on, and he's been in the leadership for like 5 years, or 3 years, and he's going to stand in as an expert. Kampala has been there for what, over 20 years, right? Over 30 years actually, since Uganda. For over 100 years.
Since independence.
Right? Even before independence, Kampala was there,
yes.
Right? And Buganda was there. Boda Bodas has been in Kampala for now close to 20 years or even more. Because when you remember the stories of the Yamahas, the Met that came in, these were many years ago, when those of MK started, is it called a BMK?
BMK, yes.
Yeah, started importing these used motorcycles from Japan. These were many years ago.
Sorry, with scooters.
Huh?
Scooters, not even yet the Yamahas.
Yeah.
Because village headmasters those days would have those scooters.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and those red bikes, these are things that happened many years ago. If you look at the economic contribution of Boda to this country, it's enormous. Look at the economic contribution to the city, right? Someone will not tell you that. I want to give you a very small example. Do you know that each of the Boda that rides around Kampala at least paid tax of 800,000 or 600,000 at entry to the country? Each of the Boda that is riding in Uganda. This is what people will not tell you, but someone will stand there and tell you Boda don't pay tax. Each of those Boda running on the street has paid at least 600,000 in tax.
That is exclusive of even the indirect tax they pay on the fuel they put in.
First, wait, I'm taking you there. Each of the Boda that you are saying that is riding on the street has paid at least 600,000 in tax to government. This is tax that is directly paid to URA. Now let's look at the daily operation of a Boda, right? On average, a Boda man needs 3 liters of fuel in a day to be able to make his 50,000 or 60,000 shillings in one day, right? Let's say we have how many Bodas in Kampala? Let's say only 200,000, right? 200,000 Bodas. If we have 200,000 and each one of them is using 3 liters, each of those liters have got tax between, I think it's around, it should be 1,200 right now. This is what we call indirect tax. No one is going to talk about that. But I'm going to talk about that because we pay, right? So you have, let me say, minimum tax of 800 shillings per liter, right? On the 200,000 Bodas, this means you have 160 millions. This is when you're going to use 1 liter. What will happen when you've used 4 liters? This is a $500 million, right? This is, you're only looking at Kampala. So already you'll get to realize that Boda contributes tax of over $1 billion shillings every single day to the country. This is why, and I want you to note this, that at every time, even when they talk about Boda, I'm talking about directly what a Boda will contribute. This is on the lowest number. If the current statistic shows that we have 1 million Bodas, right, riding around the town, around the country, and each of these people are using 3 liters across the country, you multiply that by 3 liters, all right, this becomes 3 million Bodas, 3 millions, then you multiply that by, let me say, 1,600, right? No, 800 plus 800, 2,400, right? So the numbers is insane. You have numbers in billions that the Boda contributes every single day. This is when you're looking only the operation of the border, man. You're not looking at the other part now. Now this is the other part. I don't know if you've seen how many garages have cropped up in the country because of the existence of Bodas. Like, you know those garages. All those garages are selling spare parts and some decors for Bodas, like oil and all these brakes and all these things. All those things come at a cost. You don't get them in the country without having to pay for tax, right? And then you look at all those employment that has been created alongside the line. Abakaza Batunde Mary, right? Mukampala, mu downtown, but restaurants is a singer. There's no way you're going to operate those businesses. Even these days with like even people who have shows, even CTV sees it important to actually host the Boda related discussion, right? So this is how important Boda has become. Like, you're looking at a group that, a sector that accounts for maybe over 10% of Uganda's GDP, but then the group that is leading this, the group that is involved, are 85% of the population. These are young people.
Yes, maybe away from the rosy figures, it maybe what downplays all that is all the shenanigans that come with being a border person, being a border rider in a space where there is a lot of more emphasis on what maybe the kind of job I'm having and the kind of rough and tumble. I quite, when I see you like this, I try to put in my mind, and I'm like, this man must have gone through the rough and tumbles of weather, of sleepless nights, and you know, all that whole groveling, grinding bit of a day-to-day practice of a border person, and also being hounded, because right now over like 1,000 plus Bodas have been impounded. In fact, at some point in time I met a police officer riding a Boda, and I didn't see UP behind it, and the person I was with in the car was the car. Now, he said it in Luganda like Shizibit. You know, you know, with all these Bodas at these police stations, and that groveling thought of the life of a Boda person, doesn't that downplay those rosy figures that are the outcome of the sector in this nation?
I think I was saying this, and I'm going to answer that very specific question, that when you look at what made Kampala what it is, you'll get to realize that the stories of Kampala rotate on things that are culturally, or that we've been living with, like things like the Rolex, things like the Bodas, things like the culture, you know, the Buganda culture and all those things. And I think I'm one of those few people who have been on the front line of promoting tourism in Kampala. Like, I started this in 2012. Before very many people could jump on it. And these are things that are fundamentally important. But away from the rosy figures and its effect, I think really so this is what I usually say, that there are a lot of, and I think the problem we have is that we have people who don't understand who don't understand what a Boda is about and how the Boda comes about, but is well placed in a position of power and uses it to demonize, to make the Bodas look like demons. It makes it look like Bodas is the last thing that any other human being, or Boda riding is the last thing that any other human being should do. I usually say this, and recently I've developed my own word in saying that the people who are saying the wrong things are actually being heard, while those who are actually saying the right things are not being heard. And this is sad, because to be honest with you is that there are people who understand the border industry. They speak from a point of experience, right? And there are people, and when sometimes they speak about border related issues, they are not listened to. You get to realize that some of the policies and regulations that are being made are just against this group of people, right? And there's no involvement in some of this discussion. And you have to realize that, you get to realize that people at national level, powerful group of people, continue to say bad things about borders. But they forget that their own relatives, and this is something for you to note, take note of this, their own relatives are in the border industry. That I can assure you. Their wives are being taken to school, to the market by border riders. Their children somehow ends up on a border. The food they eat at home is being delivered by a border. Somehow they have what they call their border guy. Lastly, when they get stuck in traffic, they jump off their big cars and get on a border to be able to get to their final destination. These are the same people, right? And sometimes, why does this happen? I think we need to get the leadership to appreciate what Boda Bodas can do and the contribution that Boda Bodas can bring and does bring to this nation. And we'll continue being leaders in this discussion. I remember over a month ago, we had a meeting with His Excellency over the issues, over a national issue. And one of the things that came out very clearly was the issues of border. And you get to realize that somehow, he knows that there are borders. He knows that there are wrong things that are happening in the border industry, and you get to realize that he's a bit unhappy about like the border behaviors and the border still being a big issue in this country. And I understand his perspective, but of course, as a country and as young people in the border industry, we commit to supporting and making sure that things are done the right way, right? You'll bear me witness that you get very few, maybe today, but we spent many years where people were looking at us as enemies of the industry, right? You look at SafeBoard and some people are like, Bobari could be away, all these things. Like, I've had very famous people spend their time on national media busting us and making us look bad, hitting us with a hammer and all these things, right? Like, someone has an airtime, is on national TV, and is there like hitting SafeBoard, and they don't know about these things. Like, I mean, someone one day said that the founder of SafeBoard came from Japan, right? And they said so many other bad things about us, and so many incorrect information about us. So I understand that there are bad perspective about borders, but we have the responsibility to change that narrative and make it better. Like, what I decided and what we've decided to do is we are not going to sit down and allow bad people, good people, and powerful people say wrong things about the borders and we keep quiet. We'll stand up for our border community. We'll speak for them. We'll represent them. I will do anything to see to it that they are actually properly represented and listened to. One of the things that we've been pushing recently, and as part of the compliance, right, is seeing to it that the prices of a permit is actually even made more affordable, right? Why on earth would you want a permit of a border to actually be the same price like a permit for a car? Right? And we have actually been talking about this at ministry. You're telling us there's a riding permit, but you don't have a riding permit. You have the differences in the class that you offer, right? But we have to pay. I have to pay the same money for a learner permit. I have to pay the same money for testing. I have to pay the same money. I have to pay, like, literally everything. I have to pay the same. And even at the final price, I have to literally almost pay the same price, right? You get to realize that in some of the developed countries, you don't look at some of these things as a revenue, as a way of making more money, right? Recently, I think early this year, Ministry of Works and Transport had made a recommendation to amend actually and to reduce the permit price by around 50%. And you have had General Katumba on national TV saying, you know what, we commit and we need to make sure that permit are made affordable. But these are issues that were rejected in the parliament, right? They refused because some people in Ministry of Finance do not see the economic effect of this, but they do not see that Monago is losing money, government is losing money. The recent report was clearly showing that every other person that gets involved in a border accident and ends up in a government hospital. Government spends around 1.5 million treating this patient, right? And this has some sort of a disconnect that you actually see and is not acted upon. So when you look at the entire East Africa, I think driving or riding permit in the entire East African country, maybe, I don't know if I wanted to include South Sudan, but usually you refer to Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda as the key leader, and Rwanda. Uganda still has the most expensive driving permit fees across the entire East African board. When you go to like India and Europe, a price for a permit is like in Europe is like what, $10, and it lasts for like what, 10 years.
But yeah, every 3 years for a driving.
They even have for 1 year.
So now it is clustered. There is 1 year,
1
3
year,
years.
1 year. I think 1 year, 3 years, 5 years.
5 years, yes. 1 year,
right?
3 years, 5 years.
Yes. So and the amount of money you pay is like, it's not fair. So this is some part of the discussion that we are taking lead on, in seeing to it that there's some fairness exercise. Because the thing is, a car that has 4 tires, on average, you need at least 20 million to get a decent car on the road. Any car, like on average, you need at least 20 million. If you're buying like those one that has been used from the 1990s and maybe the Corsas and all this, that's when now you go like maybe 10 or below, right? But on average, you need like 20 million so you get a decent car that you can drive from here to your village on the road. 20 million. On average, you need like 2 million to get a decent bike on the road.
So those both cannot pay the same.
Both cannot pay because this is the difference. This is the difference. A border guy has sold this land, and
has gotten an extra loan.
Gotten an extra loan, yes. And I say, is literally a poor man, right, with fighting to get out of poverty. Well, the guys in the cars, like I mean, the time I bought a car, I had some good income. You don't buy a car if you don't have like some sort of decent income and certain privileges, right? You can't buy a car if you don't have money for rent. You can't be buying a car when you don't have what to eat, right? Well, the border man is really like Askari. Just imagine an Askari from Saracen, G4S, and all these guys buying a car, buying a border. It's a complete different transition, right? And what we are saying is that look at these people differently. And also, so the difference is that like a border man actually has got a lot of contribution to the economy because of the daily operation that continues to happen.
No, it is. I found the border industry. There's that interesting phenomena where whoever fails in other sectors, the almost last bailout before flying to Dubai will be the border.
Recently, when there was a serious lockdown, most of the teachers who lost their jobs or who were not receiving money ended up being border riders. So many of them.
But you see now you are complaining about people who really bash the sector, and in one way or the other, I may not blame them because at some point some our leaders maybe could be suffering from what in psychology they call cognitive dissonance, whereby cognitive dissonance where they see the reality but they have a conflicting view about it, yet it could be the truth. So most leaders, suffer from that. Yeah. But in one way,
but then they need us, right? And you get to realize that every leader, now 2026 is around the corner. Everybody
is going to need a border person. Yes, true.
Everybody is going to start being a friend of a border, right? Because they need you. And what we have realized that some of these leaders have used us, or have used the border industry for many years, right? For political gain and political marriage. And they've never come out clearly to appreciate the industry, right? And that's also some issue, and some of them will be singled out for doing that, right? I'm not saying we are going to single them out, but I think the borders, people who have worked with them, I've never worked with any politician to mobilize for any vote, so I think those who have worked with them will single them out and speak about some of this issue, but I've seen some of these things happening. So, yes, they could be suffering from what you call that English word for border to be money. But then the reality is we don't want leaders who hide away from the truth, right? We want leaders who stand for the people and protect the interests of the people. And we will be as loud as possible so that we are actually heard. And we don't want people saying wrong things about the border industry, actually, even when they don't understand it. So I think this is where border representation will be important. Border leadership will become key. And I think Safe Border and my team and the team that we work with at Safe Border and myself provide a better perspective on where the industry should be.
Now, Ricky, since you're here, I think we're about to take, to end the show. This is something about Safe Border in particular. I think I once ordered for a Safe Border, and this person literally, I wouldn't want to mention his name, literally told me not to use the because it's an app. Let us negotiate. The app gives us little money. And since you're here, I felt the privilege of asking, why are they dodging your app? Is it that there is a mismatch between what they would make in when they make the bargain and what the app offers them?
I think this community was not built by us as Safe Border alone. It was built by the leadership of Safe Border, by the riders community, and by the community of the customers. And we all have a responsibility to play. I think there's really been some sort of a tough economic situation on people, on our customers, on our borders, and on the company itself, where we have also taken some tougher decisions on seeing to it that we save the business. Yes, there was a discussion at a certain point where drivers were not very happy about our price structure, to which we received feedback and reviewed it accordingly. Most of those discussions actually of let's go off the app mostly happened during lockdown. And I will explain why. Before lockdown, our partner Watu had given out over 6,000 motorcycles. I think around 6,000 motorcycles had just been given out, and they had been on the street for less than 6 months. So, but then there were other thousands that were already moving. And the repayment is that it was being done through the platform. And also before lockdown, there were drivers who were taking school fees loan, cash loans from the institution, from Safe Border, to help them, support them with other commitments that they needed. When lockdown came in and the economy was suppressed a little bit, income of literally everybody was reduced to the extent that some people in formal employment were even earning a half or a quarter but less than what they would earn. So that means their spending would even be low. A borderman's income dropped from around 50,000 or 45 average to like 15,000 a day, and they were not able to meet some of their responsibilities. So this was some of the trick and survival mode that our drivers use to avoid repayment of some of the facility that they are taking. I bet this is not a very common issue these days, but if anyone ever gets such an experience, don't worry. Our contact center is available. You can always call us, you can always send us a WhatsApp, you can always email us. We'll act accordingly. These are our people. And the reason they're negotiating with you is probably not because of very good interest, but also even as they do that, they don't want you to let us know.
But I'm afraid we are out of time, Ricky. No just in just a few seconds, your parting shot this morning on CTV.
I think let's continue to be very patriotic about our country, because this is Uganda, and this is where we were born. This is where our great-grandparents were buried. We are not living, and we are not going anywhere. For those who use the Boda Bodas, please let's continue supporting these people, encouraging them and making sure that they do what is right while on the road. Don't put them on rush, because sometimes you'll have customers saying, go, I am actually late. And also use Safe Border every time you want to move around. It's fundamentally important that you use Safe Border, and make sure that the Safe Border you're using has got its reflector on, has got its helmet on, and also make sure that even as you use Safe Border, wear your helmet. And please wear your helmet, because there are a lot of bad people using the road, and anything can actually happen. So wear your helmet, be safe every time, and continue to support local initiative, continue supporting the border industry, and let's work together towards making sure that young people can get more employment and can continue to contribute for the betterment of this country.
Thank you so much, Ricky Thompson from Safe Boda. We've been discussing the crackdown on Boda Bodas and the whole Boda Bodas sector here on Twitter Jabs here at Sunrise at Sea. I've been with Ricky Thompson, the CEO and also Operations Director of Safe Boda. Well, that has been the Sunrise at Sea this morning. But remember, late in the evening, the Big Debate Talk Show will be taking place from 10 p.m. We'll be discussing geopolitics and also more programming coming up next. From me and the crew here at the Sunrise at CTV, I'd like to wish you the best of your day. Bye-bye.